and welcome to another episode of A Ball and a Chance. I'm your host, Angela R. Lewis, and today we have a very, very special guest, Kaayla Coulibaly. Kaayla works as the director of player programs and enrichment for the New York Knicks. She's worked with the Minnesota Timberwolves and as director of player programs. She's worked for PUMA. She played for the Washington Mystics. She played professionally in Europe, in Spain, Italy, France, Hungary. She won a league championship. In college, Kaayla played at North Carolina State, was all ACC, was an All-American, and Kaayla was inducted into the Ohio Basketball Hall of Fame. Kaayla, thank you so much for joining me, girl. I'm so excited to chat with you.
I'm so happy to be here, Angie. First of all, Happy New Year, and I'm so glad that we finally got this on the schedule. I feel like we have been trying to do this for almost a year, so I'm just so glad that like everything aligned and we're here. I'm excited.
Yes, it has been a long time coming. So I want to start this conversation around how we met. And feel free to chime in as well, because we've never actually talked about your perspective. Now, you have just an incredible background, and there's this sisterhood of ball players. And we were in New York. I was in New York. Y'all live there. So I was in New York visiting my friend Osato, and we just had a gathering at her house, and she invited some of her friends over. And I'm the shortest one, I'm the runt of this group. I'm 6'1". Everyone's super tall. And I remember looking at you and I'm like, I've seen that face before, but I don't know you, but you look very, very familiar. And I asked if you had a sister named Karita, and you were like, yeah, that's my sister. So Karita was, or still works for the Milwaukee Bucks. And I was director of basketball operations at Marquette, and Karita is a Marquette alum.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh my God, y'all look just alike.
I know. Everybody's like, you guys even laugh alike. I'm like, she's older, but yes, we're very similar.
Yeah, it was such a joy to meet you. And you never know how friendships will develop, but basketball connects us in ways that we can never plan for. I would have never known that meeting Osato would lead to us meeting and then us being here today.
Crazy.
It
Yeah, it's
is.
so interesting how like the game of basketball, like personally, has given me so much, and you don't even realize the things until you like have conversations like this. Like, who would have thought we'd be sitting in the middle of Queens at a house party, having dinner, and chilling, and like, and we're already connected, and we don't even know each other's stories. So that's incredible, and that's what the journey of sports, basketball in particular, for us does.
It really does. And now, how did you end up there?
Um, End up where? At
End up
Osado?
yeah, at Osato's.
Okay, so I'm friends with one of her other childhood friends, Adiola, who grew up in Brooklyn. They played basketball together. I think they played AAU ball together here in New
Mhm.
York. So Addie and I went to college at NC State together years ago, remained friends. And when I just moved here, Addie was like, okay, I have really good friends here. You need to grow like your sisterhood here. And I was like, yes, like I want to make friends outside of work. I want to have like my own people that are into the same things that I like, that look like me, that are working and just thriving and doing things. So she's like, yeah, so come. That was like still maybe one of like our maybe second or third time like of me hanging out with Osato and Addie and that group of friends. But the first time we all met, we just really vibed and connected. And I was like, whenever you go back over there, like, don't leave me out. And that's literally how I got there. And I think we were even doing like a potluck or something. And I love to cook. And I was like, ooh, count me in. And we sat and ate.
We
Yeah.
were so happy that you cooked. We were so happy. It was December. It was
Yeah.
December, and you brought all of this vegetarian or vegan. We were like,
Mhm.
whatever this is, it is delicious. Please, please bring more of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that was so cool. So cool. So let's go present day. Talk about your work with the Knicks.
Yeah, so like you said, director of player programs and enrichment. And whenever I say that title, people are like, what? Because it's just so many things, and it is a lot of layers. I was previously director of player programs and player development here. But a lot of times when I would announce myself and say, "Hi, Kayla with the Knicks, director of player development," people would automatically assume that I was a coach.
Hmm.
And there is such thing as a player development coach. That's the type of coach that works with all the guys on the skills and kind of just, them getting better at dribbling, whether they're a guard or shooting guard or, post moves for a big man. So we actually hired a director of player development, but he didn't have that title because I had the title. And I was very happy to change my title. I did quite a bit of research just around the league of like my role. Every 30 NBA team has this role. So just kind of what is a title that's kind of like all encompassing of everything that I do and provide for our players and their families. And that's kind of how I came up with my title. So long story short, I pretty much help our players with everything off the court. So that can be anything from onboarding them. Well, I guess to start with onboarding them. So however we acquire a player, whether it's through the draft, trade, free agency, I'm kind of like the first voice, first face that they see here on the ground in New York, and just kind of helping them get acclimated to the city, finding housing. If they have children, where should I live so my kids can have school? Buying cars, setting up bank accounts, all the little small things that help them live a life off the court so they really don't have to worry about anything and can focus on, what they're supposed to do on the court and be a good teammate. Along with that, I also help them with their families, whether that's just, figuring out, okay, I'm coming here with my wife. What can my wife do, while she's used to working or she wants to get into, some philanthropic endeavors? How can you help her there? Also helping them just cultivate just healthy relationships with their people, their families, their significant others, their spouses, children's, just kind of everybody who's like in that circle, just helping make sure that they're fostering good relationships because so much of how they perform on the court depends on the people and the things that happen around them off the court. So I am not a therapist, but we provide everything that they may need. We do have sports psychologists, sport performance doctors, trainers, all different kinds of medical professionals, and even just like career planning, just whatever it may be, just kind of helping them figure out life off the court and just making it easy. I also work closely with a lot of their partners and agencies just to help, bridge the gap there. And then I also do that as well for the MSG business side. So helping kind of be a liaison between our corporate partners, marketing partners, community outreach, social impact, all of those things. I kind of just bring all of us together to help activate for the players and for the company.
You are busy.
Yeah,
You are
times 15. Yeah,
even more so. Thank you
yeah.
for making time for today, because you probably have some emails. No, I think that the way you describe your work is really beautiful. You're in service, like you are serving to the highest level. You're taking care of families, you're helping partnerships, you're making sure that players' minds can be free because the people around them are taken care of.
Right.
Now, when you were 12, did you have the vision of doing the work that you're doing now? Like, how did this come about?
When I was 12, I think I still wanted to be an obstetrician. That was like and I don't even know if I really like knew what that was. I was just like, yeah, I want to be a doctor. Okay, I choose this profession. At the age of 12, and honestly, even when I started this work 12 years ago, I didn't really know that this position existed in sports. So
Oh,
many of us athletes I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, that's it. That's it. Like, that's the whole point of this because we don't know what exists. I'm sorry, I'll let
Yeah.
you finish. That just
No,
pierced my soul.
I had no idea when I was approached to start this job, similar work in Minnesota back in 2013. Um, my boss was like, and that's kind of when the push in the NBA begin to kind of create the wellness, holistic player. How can we really do that and really provide services for our players off the court and not just say it and speak about it? Oh, let's create this role. So that's where the league mandated this role on every team. And then from that point, it was kind of like, here are the guidelines, here are the parameters, here's your roster, but you have to kind of make it and mold it to fit the players on your team. So when I first started, I was like, I didn't even know my job was a job. And I said that to a lot of people and they were like, that what are you saying? Like, and most people, even from the outside looking in, until you have a 5-minute conversation with them about my job and what I do, they're like, oh, there's coaches, there's trainers, there's doctors, and there might be some people who do some other little stuff, but they don't really understand that this is a role. So I would say for the first 3 years, it was kind of like trial by error, and I was just learning as I went along. And then as it went on, the league provided more resources for us. I was able to like really reach out to other leagues and really understand like, oh, this is what player development is off the court, you know? But yeah, when I talk to young people all the time, I'm like, what do you see yourself doing in sports? And the majority of them are like, oh, I'm going to play in the NBA. And many times I'm like, do you know our league has 30 teams, but there's only like 400 and what are we, 425 players in the NBA? And still in 2026, I think the average age of a career is like maybe 23, 24, which puts your average span of your entire NBA career at 4.5 years. So if you start playing, you go right out of high school at 18 or 19, by 23, 24, you could be retired. So that's kind of where I kick in. Like, did you save your money? Are you paying your taxes? Are you investing? What else do you want to do off the court? You know, that's such a big piece too, like helping our guys figure out their brand. That's kind of what it's called, you know, these days. But just really, what else do you have interest in doing? And even explaining to them, we do every year a thing called the business of basketball. And that's explaining to our current roster guys, who are some in their 30s and, you know, late 20s, like they're, what the other pieces of the team are outside of your coaches and your teammates and the trainers that kind of help make the whole thing go, you know? Like you just didn't appear on Times Square in the billboard. Like there's a whole team of people that put you there, and there's a lot of jobs that really can keep you around the game of basketball that are really fun if you don't end up like being blessed enough to actually play on the court, you know?
Let's dive into some of that. So there are the 30 teams, and then there's a handful of players, 10 to 15 on each roster.
Yeah.
What are 15 on each roster? What are the roles outside of that? You know, you
Yeah.
walk into an arena and you see the lights and you see there's a lot happening, but we're just often just honed in on the court.
Yeah, so to make it quick, I'll do arena. So there's a whole crew that has to set the arena up for a game, make sure all the seats are set up properly, make sure our court is down on the floor properly, baskets are at the right level, height, angle, balance, all of that. There's ushers and concessions, like you just go up and get food. Like those are jobs that people have that kind of make all of that go. And then I think more of on the office side, it's, you know, how did you guys see the commercial with Jalen and AT&T? Like AT&T is Verizon's a partner, but you know, like we have certain partners, and we partner with Delta. We have guys who partner with DoorDash, Dunkin' Donuts, just all different types of commercials and, you know, activations that you may see around the city. There's an entire team of people, marketing people mostly, who create those ideas, create a vision, make it happen, work with me to get the player to do the activation. And that's kind of how it all comes together. I tell young people all the time, what are you interested in? Find out what you're interested in and then go searching. If you really want to be in sports and you're like, darn, I'm not a player, I didn't make it professionally, that's okay, because there's still something there with the team that could potentially pique your interest. And you know, if you're an artist, we have people who draw a lot of the campaigns that people see around the city. You know, we have a creative team that creates our jerseys, our logo on the court. There's so many jobs to be had within sports teams. And it's not just in the NBA. All of these jobs are with all the major sports leagues, MLB, NHL, NFL. You just, people just don't know.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that overview. Let's Thank you for that overview. And I think you did a great job of creating the bucket. So if there are young people listening or young professionals who want to work in sport, think about the arena, think about the visuals that you see, think about the food that you're eating, think about the people who are recording the games and the media around it. There are all these buckets around sport. I want to take a, a little step back to young Kayla. Okay. Now, I've been 6'1" since I was 12 years old, and you're taller than me. When
Yeah.
did you stop growing? And what was it like growing up at that time?
So I think I hit my peak height going into my freshman year of high school. So it's crazy to say, like, I mean, I was tall, but like, I think I grew maybe like 3 or 4 inches my last summer going into freshman year. Fortunately for me, it was just like, oh, okay, I'm tall. It was fine. I come from a family, everybody is an athlete. My dad is 6'11", my mom is 5'10", so we knew like pretty early on, like we're all going to be extremely tall. And I have three brothers, they're 6'6", 6'6", and 6'5", and my sister is 6'2" as well. So it's just like, that's all I knew was height. So luckily for me, that was something that I did not have to struggle with. But I did have a lot of friends who I played basketball with and who didn't play sports. They were just tall, who really struggled with like, being tall. And especially as a female, it's like, man, like you're taller than all the boys at that age. And it's just really strange and weird. But I think the thing that I was able to use to help my friends was just that, my parents always, instilled confidence in me. And at whatever height I am, you just be yourself and you be confident and be bold and be you. One thing that my father did when we were younger is that he said he knew that my sister and I were going to be extremely tall, so he put us in ballet. And the reason he put us in ballet was for us to have a really good foundation of like footwork and just how to kind of handle your limbs when they're growing really quicker than your mind is growing, which is pretty much what happens to all of us, from 12 to ages 12 to 16. You're just like, I don't even know the body that I'm in, during those years. But he knew early on that we were going to be really tall. So he's like, it wasn't even about like getting you guys ready for basketball. He was like, I just wanted you to be able to carry yourselves with grace and dignity and confidence. So he's like, you guys did ballet for like 5 years. And I was like, wow, okay.
That makes so much sense. I can totally see it because you and Karita are both so graceful, like so jazzy and graceful, and
Yeah.
it makes sense.
Yep.
Okay, Dad. Foresight.
Yeah.
No, that's wonderful. That is absolutely wonderful. When did you begin to say, "Oh, I'm taking this basketball seriously"? Basketball now is a bit different than when we were coming up. When
Yeah.
did you like lock in?
So it was eighth grade for me. I had just started playing AAU. And honestly, I was tall, but for me, I was playing basketball because my really close girlfriends, Amber and Desiree, were on the team. So we did
Mm.
seventh grade basketball together. The best part was like waiting for practice after school. We got to eat junk food, like no parents were there. We ran around the school for 2 hours, practiced, and then we went home. But my eighth grade year of playing, my dad he started coming to my games, and he was like, you are really good. But I don't know if you know the name John McClendon. He was a really good friend of my father's and huge in the basketball world. And my dad, he kind of mentored my dad a few years, like when I was younger, and he was around us a lot. And he came to one of my games with my dad, and he was like, yeah, you're good. But he's like, if you really want to be good and be something at basketball, you have to get serious about it. And he's like, I know you're doing it because your friends are doing it, but he's like, if you really want to, because at that time I was like, yeah, I'm tall, I'll go to college and play. And he's like, no, it's a little bit more than that. If you really want to play basketball and succeed, he's like, you have to get serious about it. And he's like, you can still have your friends, still hang out with them, but he's like, you have to learn discipline. And he's like, if you really want to, be great, and you have to become disciplined with the sport of basketball. And he's like, that's going to be some hard times when you're going to have to choose between going to the movies with the crew, or going to practice on Saturday morning, or going out of town on a weekend for a long trip while everybody's maybe staying back and there's a school dance or something's going on with your friends. And he's like, if you commit to being disciplined about the game of basketball, he's like, there's no telling where you can go. And, I thought about it and I was like, yeah, I'll see. And then I really started to think about it. And then the summer after eighth grade is when I was like, I went to my dad and I told him, okay, I'm ready to be great. And he's like, well, don't just tell me because Mr. McClendon told you. He's like, if you're really going to do it, like, we're going to do it and we're going to train and you're going to really, like, we're going to take this to another level. And some of your friends may get left behind because they're not going to be able to, keep up with the level that we're going to start to push you on. And I was like, I'm okay with that. And that was, what I decided to do. And that's really when basketball took off for me.
What I love that, like your dad let you make the conscious decision that you wanted it. So you literally have to say, I want this. And then he
We
was like,
all
you
did.
sure? You sure you
Yeah.
want this? Yeah. Tell me about growing up. Let's talk about, I think environment matters in term because our environment creates our value system oftentimes. So tell me about what it was like growing up in a family of athletes.
Yeah. So, my dad played professionally. He has two championships, one with the Lakers, one with the Cavaliers. So, I mean, we grew up early on watching his like old games on like old school like film reels, like when we were really young. And now we can like turn on NBA TV and watch like his playoff games, which is just still absolutely wild after 45 years of being on Earth. Still being able to like see him in a commercial on NBA TV is insane. But for him, he never like forced us into basketball. When we got to age of sport, he said, you need to be active. I don't care what you play, what you do. You have to be active and you need to pick an instrument. You guys have to figure out some type of musical instrument. He's like, we're going to get the arts and we're going to get the sports. So I played the cello for 6 years while I was like growing up playing basketball. But he never forced any of us to play. Every single one of us, all five of us, went to him and said, we're ready. I'm ready to play, Dad. I want to train. Like, I want to take this serious. None of us, like, he didn't force any of it on all of us. And he still says that. Like, you'll ask him, like, I didn't force any of my kids to play basketball. It's just obviously what they gravitated to. But if my daughter wanted to play volleyball or run track or soccer, he was like, we would have went all in just like we did for basketball with them. But he said specifically, like for basketball, he wanted us to come to him. He didn't want to feel like he was putting any kind of pressure on us to play the sport and try to like make him proud, or he never made us feel like he was living through us or any of that. He was very much like a coach, you know what I mean? But he was our dad.
No, that's really special. And that support makes a big difference. And for some people, it's parents, right? My parents were super supportive, older brothers. I come from the same, like basketball is everything home, where we just played a lot. Um, but for some people don't have that. And it may be a coach, it may be an auntie, it may be an uncle. But having people to show you what it takes to get to the goals that you want is critical.
Yeah.
That's part of that value system. So you all obviously valued hard work. Are there other things y'all valued? So training,
Yeah, and academics, that kind of gets lost when you talk about athletes that reach the professional level. I just don't think, people think that we are also like, everybody's like, oh, you're called student athletes. That was the running joke with everybody in college, but they're like, you're athlete students. And I'm like, no, I'm really a student athlete because for us, like growing up, we had to have like certain grades in our household to play. Like, we don't care what the team mandated for your GPA to be or what you got on tests. I mean, this was like a weekly thing. My mom played volleyball in high school. She didn't play collegiate or professional, but she played enough to know and grew up with parents as well, is that if you're not doing it in the classroom, you are not playing. And I can remember like crying to my parents, begging them to let me play in a game, but they were like, no, you want to act out in class or you missed an assignment, told us you did it, it didn't get done. Well, that's okay. We'll show you. You're not playing. And the coach, was like, no, it's okay. She can make it up. That's fine. She can make it up, but she's going to learn a lesson here. We all had standards in our household, all five of us, that if we weren't doing right in the classroom, there was no chance we were getting anywhere near the basketball. And that was like handed down from my dad and my mom. Like both of them were like, no, they were one on that. They're like, nobody's giving in. I missed quite a few AAU tournaments and games in school growing up, big games. I mean, the coach was calling the house like, can she just play this one and miss the next one? And they're like, no, she'll go. Cheer her teammates on. Do not put her in that game. She will learn her lesson. And my parents stuck with that all the way until we got to college. And they did not play about our grades. And, we all graduated with great GPAs and, passed all the SATs, ACTs, all of that. We actually scored pretty well. But they did not mess around with schoolwork. And, my dad always says to us and said to us, it's a privilege to be able to play basketball, one, but it's also a tool. And he's always, his thing was don't let the game of basketball use you, use the game of basketball. And I have to say, like, I feel like I have done that, playing in high school and being top of my class and being able to go on and go to college for free and get a free education. I have my degree. And then, just by the grace of God, I was blessed to be able to go on to obviously play professional sports. But if I didn't, I always had, my degree to fall back on.
Yeah. So basketball for you opened so many doors, but you were going to have opportunities because you took care of the other side of it. You made sure that you did well. Your parents made sure. It
Yes.
sounds like you were cutting up a little bit, Kayla. I didn't know that about you, girl. I didn't know you were cutting up.
I was like, and it wasn't even, I wasn't a bad kid. My mom said, you talk too much. It's like, you just wouldn't like, just stop talking. You would miss assignments because you'd be talking and then the teacher wouldn't repeat it. So you wouldn't know when stuff was due. She's like, you're just doing it to yourself. So
But look at you now.
I
You
know,
get to talk and help people all like this is what you do professionally. So
right.
not that definitely not that mom was wrong. However, it's usually those things that like we're gifted with. There's both sides of it. It could take us one or both ways.
Yeah.
No, that's really interesting. I want to explore your experience overseas. I know
Hmm.
you had an experience that yeah, so you played in five countries, five completely different countries. I want young people to know, and people in general, but definitely young people, that the world is their opportunity. That
Man.
especially with sport, it connects you to people all over the world. Osato and I didn't mention this. Osato and I met in Germany. We became friends in Germany. She's from New York, and then fast forward 20 years, I'm in New York, and here we are. We could have never predicted this. So let's take some time to talk about your experiences in each country, maybe just a little bit,
Yeah.
and some lessons you learned from living abroad.
Yeah. I think the way that sport opened my mind to the world, I will forever be grateful for. I feel like all 8 years of me being overseas have shaped the person who I am today. I know it. Um, there were happy times, there were times of sadness and like having to overcome so many different types of adversity. I mean, we can obviously honestly have a podcast separate about like
Right.
overseas experiences, good and bad. But I think overall, just being able to be exposed to different people, food, language, culture, was incredible. It was scary at times, but I'm grateful that in any country on any continent, basketball is basketball, and that never changed. And people are like, "How the hell are you learning Hebrew or like Italian in a week?" I'm like, I mean, defense is defense. It might sound different, but defense is defense and score and shoot and block. You know what I mean? Um, but I think overall it was an amazing experience. I still have friends like to this day that I talk to. I've been retired for what, how many years now? 13, 15 years? No, more than that. Is it more than that? No,
We're in
13
20.
years.
Okay.
Wait, where are we
We're
at?
in
20?
2026.
Yeah, 13 years retired, my goodness. And I still have friends that I talk to, but the life lessons that I learned overseas were just like you just sometimes you just got to roll with the punches. It's not always going to be an amazing day. You're not always going to have a wonderful team. But the thing about there is that, every country that I went to, unless something was detrimental to my safety or my health, I always went in with the mindset of you signed a contract that is your bond, and you have to be a professional and do your job until the end of the season or until that contract runs out. And there were a lot of days where I was like, I would like to pack my bags and go home. But that's life. This is not, it wasn't just being in basketball. That's life. That's how it is some days with work. If I'm sick or if I'm having a bad day or if we're on a losing streak and all the guys are like, eat dirt, like they don't want to talk to me. It's the same thing. It's just, we're in a different space, but it just taught me how to deal with the ups and downs of life, honestly. And that was like, besides the winning and losing, that was just like learning to live in a place where, and oftentimes I would be by myself. And one thing people didn't understand is they're just like, well, why were you the only American on the team? Well, as bigs are like more garnered after overseas. Everybody wants a big man on the team. And sometimes, like, we may make a little bit more than a guard. So they can't afford to have a guard on the team. So what are they going to choose? A guard for cheap or go for the big man? And a lot of times that's how I ended up on teams being the only American. In my first few years, I was like, man, this really sucks. And then I'm like, I'm looking at this completely wrong. One, thank you, God, for the blessing of giving me a job, where I can start to like save and support myself. And two, use it to your advantage. Like learn the language, learn your teammates, get to know people, explore these cities. I lived in Sicily, in Italy for a season, and I'm like, there's no way like I am not going to explore Italy.
Okay.
Like, are you kidding me? you know? So just kind of flipping my mindset, I think, really helped me survive over there for 8 years. And overall, it was a beautiful experience. Obviously, there's ups and downs with every aspect of life, but I wouldn't trade those years and the way that they shaped me for anything.
Yeah. I love that, and I know you have tons of stories about playing overseas, and there are some people who say, "Well, I don't want to have to go to another country and travel to meet," especially with so many women's leagues popping
I
up now,
know. And
right?
yeah,
Just
that's an option
Unrivaled and
now.
Upshot. Mm-hmm.
That wasn't an option for us. It
No.
was either the WNBA, which I did for a little bit, but then for me, the majority of my career, it turned out that it ended up being overseas, and that was what was best for me. But I think that, yeah, there are so many opportunities for women now to play here in the States. And like I said, even if you don't want to play, but you're like, I just want to be around the game, that's when you need to start like meeting people like you and I and understanding that there are other roles around the game of sport that can keep you involved and you just don't have to be out there sweating every single day in practice.
Yes, very, very true. There are other options. When you think about the growth of women's sports, what what are you most excited about? Even though you're with the Knicks, so you're on the men's side.
Yeah, I
But
still follow. I'm all about women's sports. I do love that all the leagues that are popping up. One, because the WNBA has grown tremendously since I started playing, and even like I mean, they have gone leaps and bounds, but there's still not enough space for all the players who really deserve to be playing professional. I mean, I love March Madness because that's like my favorite. I mean, probably every basketball player loves March Madness, but like the talent that I have been seeing these last like 3 seasons, I'm like, they're like I'm talking like 1 through 10 on rosters of like top 25, even some of these mid major teams, like, darn, these girls are good.
Yeah.
and they can play. And it's like, it just sucks that there's not enough space for them to be in the WNBA. So, with all these other leagues happening, I love that. I love that it's an opportunity for them to make a living doing what they love to do. With that, I also love that there's the NIL. I'm like, where was this
Right.
25 years ago? Because I'm
Girl,
like, if we run this back, I'm
just a
like,
little bit. Let's run it back.
man, I'm like, how far back are they going with this? But I mean, I think right now with the NIL, I think they're still trying to figure it out. I think it can be wonderful, but there's also some things that I know that need to be changed just to one, make it fair for all schools to really still be able to compete at a level that makes sense, and we don't get these, powerhouses, kind of like almost I feel like what we had my last few years of playing in college. It's like you get like the same top 10 teams. They get the top 20 talent every year. Um, Everybody does well until you get to them in the tournament, and then you're losing by 15, 20 points, and you end up with the same four teams in the final four. I love that over the last like 10 years, you're seeing all these teams, like teams come out of the woodwork, people like deliberately making decisions to go to mid majors, D3s, HBCUs, and really make a difference and impact in these schools. I love the competition of that. And I also love the NIL. I just think it's still new. So of course people are like, completely against it, think it's crazy. But I think it's awesome for these kids to be able to get paid off their name, image, and likeness. Like it doesn't like there's
Yeah.
nothing else I can
Trademark.
say.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You've got an
100%.
18-year-old who's got her face on a Bojangles board. Let her get paid from that. My only thing is that if we're going to start opening up the window and the door for all of these young athletes to make so much money at such a young age, I just want there to be some kind of education for them and their families for the financial piece, because that's what I can see. That's one of my biggest concerns is, these kids are making so much money at such a young age, but who's helping them manage this? It's the same thing here in the NBA. I mean, even, letting our young guys know, like, oh yeah, you made this, perfect example. They won 500 and what $65,000 for the in season tournament. I'm like, yeah, okay, so Uncle Sam's gonna take half and then you'll get your cut. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
wait, what do you mean? And these are 22, 23
Yeah.
year old men who still don't understand like taxes, and New York is in the highest tax bracket in the country, but you're also going to have to pay taxes in Nevada because that's technically where you got the check. So like just the education piece around all of that is something that I'm really interested in, hoping that it continues to grow. I know specifically for the NBA and our player development, we are starting to move into the collegiate space. A lot of the combines and the top 25 camps and different clinics that they have over the summer, I know they're starting to implement some of these things. Financial literacy, media training, just healthy relationships within your family, just the things that kind of make these guys whole players. So I would love to see that both on the men's and women's side.
I love it. I love that piece around the professional development because outside of sport, people are developed professionally. Companies, corporations, it is intentional that people grow, that they're learning about mental health and financial literacy and all of that. At the collegiate level, they have like life skills coordinators and that helps them as well. So I think it's really important that that continues.
Yeah, for sure.
There's something fascinating that we're seeing, not only about the growth of women's sports in the US, but the growth of basketball specifically globally. There's NBA Africa League, which we have to get to a game at some point, which we can talk offline about that. But I mean, the league is young,
Yeah.
so there's a league growing there. I've heard talks about the NBA in Europe, that league
Hmm.
growing. We have NBA academies throughout the world to
Yes.
help the grassroots. And we're seeing so many NBA players who aren't American.
Yeah.
And so the game has really shifted. So would love to hear your perspective and thoughts around the growth of basketball globally.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. I think it's great. Watching the NBA draft this year, my husband and I were sitting here and we were like, oh, like we have, I think we have three French kids on our current roster, on the Knicks roster. And I'm trying to think if we have any other. I think we have one of our, yeah, maybe three or four international players on our current roster right now. But I love it. Basketball is global. Sports is global. Whether it's football, baseball, sports is global. And I love that the NBA is, I feel like at one point it was just kind of like, oh, we want to keep it here in North America. It's an American thing. No, and honestly, a lot of that is obviously due to money. You grow your game, you grow, eyes on the sport that creates revenue, many different streams of revenue. But on top of that, there's talent in all of these other countries too. So how can the NBA remain the top league and I'm just speaking NBA, and this is the same thing for the W, but how can the NBA remain the top and most garnered after basketball professional league in the world? You have to have the best players, and that's not just in the 50 states of America anymore. I think with players like Dirk and like the Gasol brothers, like they kind of really started to turn the tide of like, oh my goodness, like there are some really talented players that do not live in the United States. How can we get them to our league? And I know that the NBA has the resources to reach all these different countries and all these different platforms, and they are really going after it. I mean, just this past preseason, we spent a week in Abu Dhabi, in the middle of the UAE, and people were like, "How was that?" And I'm like, "It was surprisingly incredible." There is a massive fan base for
Really?
basketball in the UAE. Yes, I mean,
Really?
there were like sheiks sitting courtside, like calling, like yelling at referees, like into the game. And we were like, this is so cool. Like, we are really a part of a global game. And there is a massive push, I think, to develop and bring these players, and it's not even so much bringing them to America. It's just the NBA is now going out and putting play like the BAL. I'm like, I want to, I have got, you're right. We have to get to a game. I want to experience that. But all of the camps and clinics that are going on all over the world, like the NBA knows that like the talent's just everywhere now. So how can we tap into that? And whether it's there or here, you know?
Yeah, it it is exciting to see. It's really exciting to see, and I saw that the BAL has a girls initiative called BAL for Her, and so during their championships, I think their championships are in May,
Yeah,
around
I think,
May,
yeah,
sometime in May. But we'll figure it out. We'll figure
I
it out.
know.
Championships or games or something
I
because it
know.
would be wonderful.
Or even if we can like get over there and do like a clinic or like we got, I have to tap into that. And I've been saying that for like the last 3 years. And I'm just like, I feel like I'm getting close to like connecting with the right people. But yeah, it's incredible what they're doing over there in Africa.
It is, and there's so much talent on the continent. So that's it's going to be wonderful to see. And I think the investment, the here's what I feel has happened. The now investment in women's sports, in women's sports specifically, and basketball even more specifically, has invigorated like our generation to say, okay, now people care. Let's share our stories. Like, how can we keep alive the history of the game? Wasn't talked about as much. We didn't have streaming services. People weren't asking about our day-to-day lives. Life was just very different. And so I think there's an opportunity, tremendous opportunity for our generation to share more lessons that we learn through sport, but in life.
Hmm.
What what advice do you have for young professionals? So you've played ball, but sport is business. It's
Yeah.
business. You work inside of a business. So what advice do you have for a young professional who is already in the sports industry but trying to find their way in their role?
Yeah, I actually mentor quite a few young people who are trying to get into this space. And number one, I always like for me to continue growing myself in my career as a professional, it is very important to always give back, whether that's volunteering. And like I said, I've got quite a few young people that I mentor. And I know somebody, including my sister, reached back for me and helped me. So I'm always like, who's back there? Who can I take with me? Who can I help? Who can I bring along the way? Come shadow me, whatever. That that's number one. But I think for a young person who is in this space, it's easy to get distracted, thinking that you start a role, you're in a role for 6 months, a year, and then you're like, okay, I'm ready to move on, or I want to be promoted, or okay, now I want that job, or I want to go here. Um, I think one thing to consider and to always remember is that like be the best at what you're currently doing. Like make it so good. Like be so good at your job that they're either going to be scared to lose you or like scared that they're never going to find anyone else like you. And then I think once you've kind of reached that point and a certain role, then it's okay to start branching out. And usually that won't happen within a year. Typically it'll take you about, 2, 3 years to really kind of root yourself in what you're doing. Be the best at what you're currently doing, and then start to maybe decide, where else you can kind of navigate. And even for young people who aren't involved in sports, I always tell them to network. You have to build your network. Now it's like jobs are based off of your resume and experience, but it's also almost 50-50 based off of the connections and the network that you have with people, because people really don't get to know you from your resume. They want to know you from conversations or a quick coffee or a quick Zoom meeting. Like get out and meet people, and in this world of like all these devices and technology, there's no excuse. I mean, you're all the way on the other side of the country. You and I are sitting here in the middle of the day having this conversation. So I would say be the best at what you're currently doing, continue to grow your network. And when you do grow your network, don't just reach out to those people when you're like, okay, Kayla said 3 years. It's been 3 years. I want a new job. I'm going to go through LinkedIn and pick this director position, this VP position, this, and then I'm just going to start, asking people to help me get the job. No. One, continue those connections with the people that you've created a network with. My sister and I always say you got to always continue to drip on people. I still do it. This is my 12th year in the NBA. I still have a network of people that I lean on for advice, whether it's career, personal, even if it's just an activation that I'm doing with a player. And I don't just reach out to them when I need help. I reach out to them just kind of occasionally and just drip on them just to check in, or a quick hello, or hey, you didn't ask, but here's what I'm working on. Merry Christmas. So I tell them to always continue to drip on those people, because then when you really do need to kind of cash in that favor, they're like, oh yeah, I've been talking to Angie for a year. I know exactly where she is in her career. She's ready. She's good to go. Let me go ahead and, endorse her or recommend her for, whatever that role may be. And then I think after that, it's always up to you, no matter how you got to the position, to show your best, be your best, and put your best foot forward. I always tell people, whether you got there because somebody recommended you or you had a hell of a resume, it does not matter. Once you're in the door, you're on your own, and you should always think like that, and then do your best, and, just show them why they hired you, and that they made the right decision.
You sound very confident.
Yeah.
And I love that. No, because this is important. Here's why. And you sound confident because you've done the work.
Yeah.
You have done the work. So you speak with such authority about this because you've done your best and you have had opportunities, and you've created things that didn't exist before in order to help organizations. How did you handle those moments where you were uncertain and where you maybe, like you said, you were recruited for a role that didn't have shape or form?
Mhm.
What gave you the confidence that you could actually figure it out instead of saying, no, I'm not ready?
Yeah. I think for the first 3 months, I just faked it until I made it, and that's just the honest truth. I was fortunate enough that Karita, my sister, had already been in the league for a while. So when I first got the job, she was like, "Okay, the NBA has like a directory. They don't do it anymore. I think it's digital now. But back in the day, it was a legit book, and it was called the Red Book. And everybody who worked for an NBA team, your contact information, title, phone number, email was in the Red Book. So she was like, okay, first thing we got to do is track down the Red Book. You got to get the Red Book and go through there and find everybody that does your position, reach out to everybody, let them know that you're new." And she's like, three to five of them will gravitate back to you, and those are going to be your people. She's like, you lean on them for everything, programming, um, how to deal with players, how to deal with family, how to create resources for whatever you need. She's like, that those are now your people. And 12 years later, they're still my people, which is crazy, because it was a role where the league was really just kind of like, we need it to get done, but just make it however you want. And we're like, yeah, but what does that mean? Yeah, that. And we're like, no, no. Tell me, what does this mean? And that's really how it was. And I love them for that because no NBA team is alike. There's no cookie cutter like program to what we do. What I do, my best practices don't work for my colleague in OKC. They have a completely different team. They're so much younger than us. She's like, I love that, but it would never fly here. And it's the vice versa, but them just giving me like just kind of like a base and a platform to start on was great because it was really hard in the beginning, just trying to understand it, trying to fit into a corporate space after having just finished playing for 8 years. It was like, you go down for lunch and you play pickup at lunch, and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to eat and go home. And it's like, no, you have to go back to work, or you have an event to go to with a player. So it was a lot of transition early on for me. And I still have to go back to just, my days overseas and the foundation that my parents set with me. And I really had to be disciplined with myself to really learn this job. One, to see if this is something that I wanted to do, could do, and could make a career out of. And it was a little shaky in the beginning, but honestly, I think once I got the understanding of what the work was, and then I was like, oh, and I can make it however I want. Okay, so I'm going to make it how my brain thinks. And I'm going to ask our players, talk to the families. Hey, do you like this? Or, oh, you guys just came from another team. What did you guys, and you just have to communicate and ask people. And that's pretty much how I've kind of like built myself up, I guess, so to speak, through my career. But and then I would say like years like 5 through 8, it was like it just got really fun because you started to see the impact of like that you had with people, mainly the players and their families. And now it's like full circle. I have players who I had in Minnesota who are now coaches in the NBA, and it's like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. Like, just to see them growing and knowing that like one of the players I worked with in Minnesota, Gorgie Jang, he's from Senegal, and he was with me in Minnesota, and he's now an assistant coach for the San Antonio Spurs. And like I saw him a couple weeks ago before, right after the holiday, and he's like, man, he's like, Kay, you really helped me and my family in Minnesota like you wouldn't even know. And it was just like, I'm done. Like, what else is there to work for? Like having moments like that just kind of makes it all worth it. And I'm extremely blessed. Like my job is very, very busy. I'm always on the go, but I really do love what I do. I love being of service to these young men and their families and just kind of helping them develop. It's fun. It's exciting. Sometimes it's unknown. It's crazy, and it's a roller coaster. But I'm just very, very fortunate to be able to do what I do and love it because there's many people that don't can't say that.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I think you summed that up perfectly. There are three big things I heard you say around your work and advice for young professionals. The first thing is ask for help soon.
Yeah.
Like when you know you don't know what you're doing, find someone who can give you guidance. So Karita didn't tell you how to do your role. She said, find people who are in the same
Yes.
role. And I think that was the second piece of wisdom that you mentioned is we always kind of look, we're told to look up to find the
Hmm.
people who's next in line. But if you just look across, there's a lot of wisdom that can come from our peers.
Yep.
And so first, ask for help. Two, look across the line, see who's where you are because there's talent. And then the third thing was if you can, you're not going to know what you're doing. Even when they give you information, you're still not going to know what you're doing. And that's okay. Give
And that
yourself
is
a
okay.
chance. Give
Yeah.
yourself a chance to be good.
Yeah.
Don't leave before you're good,
Yeah.
right? The discomfort is only because you don't know what you're doing. And you're not
Yeah.
supposed to know. There's this idea that confidence, you say you're confident and then you all magically become confident. No, like you speak with such authority, Kaayla, about your work and passion because you gave yourself a chance to be good enough to have the results speak for
Right.
themselves, and you can speak with power on it. And I love that. I just wanted to highlight the wisdom that you gave because it's key and I think it's going to bless somebody.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, I just want to wrap up here and say thank you. I'm so glad we finally had a
I
chance to make
know.
this interview happen. We are rooting for the Knicks. Well, I'm in Dallas, but you know what
Yeah.
I mean. I'm rooting for you, so I want to see the Knicks do well, unless they play Dallas. But
Yes. Thank you.
you're welcome. You're welcome. If there are young professionals who are interested in learning more about the work you've done that you've described, even about playing, how can they reach you? What's your preferred method of communication?
They can usually most people reach out on LinkedIn. I would say I do have some young people. This is a new age, so young people can find me on Instagram. My handle is at Chones50. That's my maiden name, so Chones 50. And just send me a message, and we'll connect. And however I can help or advice or steer you, I'm happy to do that. And thank you, Angie, for allowing me to have this space on your platform. All the things that you're doing, from your heart, your passions, and what you're doing and giving young people has been incredible. So you keep going, sis. And I love you and thank you.
You. I love you too. Thank you so much. And shout out to number 50. I'm number
Yes,
50 as well.
you
So
see.
yeah, shout out to the number 50s. No, thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all so much for listening to another episode of A Ball and a Chance. Be sure to tune in for the next episode, and all Kayla's contact info will be in the show notes. See y'all next time.